Very recently, Vicky, her sister, kindly gave us this, which you might recognise as a Famicom. I know very little about these things, Neil.
Well, the machine itself, family TV game, it says on the front, Nintendo Famicom, came out in Japan in 1983.
Okay.
Had quite a lifespan actually. It didn't come out in Europe. Oh, I think it was 85 in the US, maybe the following year in Europe. Brazil officially 93, and it wasn't discontinued in Japan until 2003. So it had a 30-year lifespan, which is incredible really, considering the age of the technology. This old 8-bit console, historically it's an important system. Some say, and I don't 100% agree with this, but some say this is the machine that saved the video games industry.
Okay.
That's a very American point of view, because in the UK we had the Spectrums and the Amstrads
Yes,
and the microcomputers, and we didn't really feel the ripples too much of the great video game crash. So there's a debate to be had there.
It's in need of a bit of work, and I suppose that's sort of part of my deal, really. And as you can see, you know, a lot of the cables and wires are a little bit frayed and that kind of stuff. So the plan is to clean this up, refurbish it, and perhaps even give it back to Vicky's family, just so that they can enjoy some nostalgia later down the road. Now, what are the games like?
Well, you've got Donkey Kong here, so that's obviously a Nintendo classic.
Proper,
Again,
yeah.
Can't tell you if this is original or not. Yeah, classic system that deserves your attention, Howard, for sure.
Superb. Okay, well, we'll get on and we'll see if we can fix that one up. And thank you ever so much for popping over. So here it is, the Famicom. This project became an absolute labour of love. So as I said, it was given to me by Vicky's family, and it's been used, well used, as you can tell. It's got more rice and gravy stains on it than a tramp's bedroom sheet, and the cables are frayed and worn out, the mechanics are knackered, the controls are sticky, and when you plug it in, nothing works. So it's time to get this thing apart and see what we can do with it. It's relatively easy to get it apart and put it back together. The mechanics are quite simple, and really it's just a few screws to be able to get to the PCB, which unfortunately has a broken edge connector. So we can fix that with a spot of glue a little bit later on, but let's go ahead, strip this thing down, and let's inspect the mechanics for any potential broken bits. And then let's go ahead and give everything a really good clean up. So in order to do that, I borrowed, much to the wife's dismay, the kitchen sink and a little bit of fairy liquid and a sponge. And then, next to some of the towels and beer brewing equipment, I put it out on the clothesline. So let's get the PCB and let's check out that PCB, give it a good service and a good clean up as well. As you can see, Neil has been here before. He's written on my desk. So with some WD-40, I've gone ahead and cleaned the switch, using it like contact cleaner. And then with a soft cloth, in fact a little cotton wool pad, I've gone ahead and shined up that PCB, or at least gotten rid of all of the dust and dirt and debris that was on it. These electrolytic capacitors have a tendency to dry out and ultimately stop working properly. And thankfully I had a nice stash of replacement capacitors upstairs in my electronics stores. This should make sure that these capacitors aren't the cause of any faults currently, or any potential future faults that might happen over the next couple of years because they've dried out. One thing that you might appreciate, me being ever so slightly dubious, is the massive chisel tip soldering iron that I'm using on my workbench, and these lovely great big choppers. So all in all, we ended up changing out 5 capacitors. The next thing was to go ahead and see if we could fix up this edge connector, and I chose Gorilla Glue. I thought, yeah, that would work. And then we've got a few rather oxidized phono style connectors, or RCA connectors, that require a bit of cleaning. So using Brasso, I went ahead and fixed that problem. Now, this particular PCB is clearly a clone PCB because it's using the UM6561F chip, which is made by the UMC, the United Microelectric Corporation, which are based out of Taiwan. Funnily enough, that's where Vicky's from. And these devices are found in many clones, like the Dendy Junior and the Dendy Classic. And here is Reese to tell us a little bit more about the original Famicom motherboard and how he has improved the original Famicom motherboard. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a special guest star on the show. It's Reese from Ctrl-Alt-Rees. Hi Reese, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thanks Howard, how are you?
Very well. Now, as I was doing a little bit of research, I stumbled across Reese, who has done his fair share of Famicom modifications and has quite a lot of Famicoms. In fact, behind you, I can see a disc Famicom, a disc drive, and the Famicom there. Now, clearly, mine is a FAMICLONE, and it has the little UM6561F chip inside of it, which is an ASIC, an application-specific IC, which is basically hard-coded, and it's produced by this company called UMC out in Taiwan. Now, the original Famicom is quite different. Please tell us a little bit about the original Famicom, and then tell us what you've done to make it better.
Okay, Howard. Right. So I have my box of Famicom parts here. Essentially, I used to buy these from a Japanese auction site and actually resell them on eBay, modified. So I've got quite a big box of bits that I've accumulated over the years. I have a couple of original Famicom motherboards here. There were two main revisions of the Famicom motherboard. So I'll send you some high-resolution pictures over because I appreciate the webcam's not brilliant. But the earlier one had the RF modulator and the power supply on a separate board here, and the later revision just has that built in. So if we go over the main parts of the Famicom motherboard, basically we've got the CPU here, which is based on the 6502, which was of course used in the Atari 8-bit computers, Commodore 64, the BBC and the Acorn Electron. Plenty of sort of games machines and computers of that era. The graphics on this board are generated by a chip called the PPU, which is the picture processing unit, and that's the part that the modification actually taps into to get the composite video signal.
Excellent. So ultimately then your mod gives you a composite out.
Yeah, so the PPU, I mean, a lot of computers generate, say, an RGB signal, which is then sort of combined to create a composite video signal to feed the RF modulator, and then you can tap into the RGB and get a really good signal out. Unfortunately, that's not really the case with the Famicom. The chip is designed to generate a composite video signal natively. So the modification basically bypasses a lot of the circuitry on the motherboard, which creates a lot of interference. These chips are kind of an older technology called NMOS. I don't know if you've heard of CMOS, but NMOS was kind of the predecessor to that. So it just taps directly into the composite video pin of the PPU. Adds a very basic amplifier circuit with just a couple of transistors and resistors, and then just takes that video out to the outside world.
That's magnificent. And then ultimately that means that with modern day equipment that has composite in on it, like a regular TV of today's era, rather than only having the RF out, you now have composite, which means that you can play your old school NES equipment on more modern TVs. That's exactly it. And in the case of the Famicoms, of course, because they were Japanese, the RF signal is an NTSC-J, a Japanese TV broadcast signal, which even modern TVs that still have an analog tuner, here in the rest of the world, they don't tend to support that standard anyway, whereas they will accept an NTSC signal over composite. And then, of course, the composite video signal is a lot better quality as well because it's less prone to interference, and it separates the video and the audio signals out into separate signals. Fantastic stuff. Reese, thanks ever so much for coming on the show today and talking us through the motherboard and the modifications that you've done there. So you're available on Twitter, Ctrl-Alt-Rees. Then also you have a YouTube channel, Ctrl-Alt-Rees. Yep. And I think you have all of the instructions for the composite mod as well somewhere. There's instructions and photos on my website, Ctrl-Alt-Rees.com.
Essentially, I couldn't really find a good step-by-step how-to guide out there, so I thought I'd put the information out there for free. The plan always was to make a video for my YouTube channel as well, but I just haven't got around to that yet. But there will be one at some point in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much for joining us, and thanks for the chat, Reese. Take care.
No, you're very welcome. It's good to talk to you.
Cheers for now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
So now we've got to grips with the motherboard, it's time to start to reassemble things, certainly the cleaned components, and lubricate things, and then we need to start to get to grips with the hand grips. Remember, it doesn't work, so let's not get too far into reassembly without figuring out the faults. Now, the handsets, or the hand grips themselves, are actually quite simple. They just use the little rubber carbon push buttons that make contact with pads on a PCB. The cable itself is really horrible. It's just a very unpleasant cable. It has, it's clearly custom manufactured. It's got grommets that are built into the cable. So what I've decided to do is get my hands on some much nicer quality cable, some shield or screened twisted pair cable. So this has got 6 cores, and it's certainly a high flex cable, and very, very pleasant, a little bit thicker than the existing cable. Now, point to note about these controllers is there's one blob chip on board, 10 buttons, and only 5 cores. So that clearly means that there's some kind of serial communications going on to the main motherboard. We've really got a shed load of cleaning to do, and we've got to get the grommets off, and yeah, I need to get downstairs and hijack the kitchen sink again. Yes, indeed, it's time to run downstairs full of enthusiasm, fire up the kitchen sink and get cleaning again. This is absolutely disgusting. I don't know how much fried rice and soup got stuck inside this controller, but alright, clean it, clean it. So I thought to myself, I wonder if I can get away with drilling out these grommets with a 6mm drill and then sliding them over the cable. And yes, indeed I did. And they were a very tight fit, so I was quite happy with the way that worked out. And then the next part of this mission was to clean up some of those gummed up button pads there, some of those PCB tracks. And the way I did that was to use a little bit of Brasso and then a little bit of alcohol. I enjoy alcohol in many varieties. Then we needed to go through the process of doing some wiring. So you'll note we're back down on the workbench in the shed again now, rather than upstairs in the electronics lab. And that's because this is a slightly dirtier job. So here's a top tip. Be careful. Don't cut yourself when you're doing this. But I can actually strip cables. I've done it so many times now. I can strip cables quickly and easily all at the same time using a Stanley knife. And some people buy special tools for doing this, but yeah, I'm dubious. So, right, let's wire up these cables and get grommets in place and all that kind of good stuff. And then with a little bit of luck, we should be able to get these controllers connected back up to the machine, and then we can test the machine. The other thing I did want to do was use a little bit of heat shrink in order to try and make those connections solid and somewhat more permanent. Back upstairs in the electronics lab, it's time for reassembly. But we have a little challenge. Unfortunately, these are so well used that one of the little carbon button pushers has popped out of a little rubberized pad, and the rubberized pad holds the carbon button in place, and the carbon button contacts the PCB in order to make contact and effectively act like a little momentary on-off switch. So what I decided to do is take all of the best parts from the two devices to make up one really good device. I used some glued or gluey heat shrink, which is magnificent because what it does is it molds itself once you've heated it up to the size of the cable and also to the enclosure that's clamping it in place. So it's clamped everything beautifully in place. Okay, let's see if we can't get these handsets fitted back in with all of their grommets and everything in place and their nice new super high flex cable. And let's put the PCB back in the unit and let's give it a run for its money and see how it goes. Fail. Unfortunately, the 5V 7805 regulator unfortunately had an issue, so we went ahead and we replaced the KIA, the Killed in Action regulator, with a Texas Instruments regulator. Now, the other thing to note with this clone is the fact that the power supply is center pin negative. This is hilarious. How can this one little device be giving me so much trouble? So we fixed the power supply, plugged it in, and still, unfortunately, nothing. So the next part of the mission is to understand if we have got a clock signal coming from the crystal. There it is, a nice, healthy-looking clock signal. So we know that the micro is running. The next part of the mission was to get the scope probe and have a look to see if there's a video signal coming out to the modulator. And as we can see there, yes indeed, there is a healthy video sync signal. The problem that we're facing is there are some dry joints with the card edge connector and also the card edges. Everything needs cleaning and resoldering. After a lot of persuasion and mucking around, we've finally got this system working. Right, that said, I haven't actually tried a joystick yet, so let's go with that button. Yes! There's a little bit of a problem with this connector. It would probably be good to replace the connector. But I think if I just resolder it and sort of bend all of the pins slightly, make sure that they're all in good shape. Not only was the connector dodgy here, and a couple of dry joints on the back, which I've resoldered. In fact, I've reflowed all of the solder joints on that connector. But also, some of the connectors that were inside these old game carts were in just such bad shape. So I've had to pop them out. And because there's no active components on there, I literally I had to get wire wool and gently scrape off the crap from the from those little terminals there. But the great news is now we can pop that. Woohoo! So Donkey Kong then was clearly a modern day cartridge with blob chips on the board. This guy is a little bit more old school. Check that out. It's even got a CR2032 battery in there to try and keep memory. We'll pop the battery out anyway, test the voltage of that, and go ahead and replace the battery and clean up all of those pins. And here's our 4-in-1. We've got Gradius Adventure Island, Labyrinth combination, Swordsman 634. How much wobbling? That's alright, okay. Okay, right. So you remember Neil?
Hello.
And Neil's from the channel Rerto Man Cave. So he is the professor, in my most humble opinion, of many things retro, retro computers and retro gaming consoles. Now, very recently, Vicky, who's my Taiwanese wife, from Taiwan, not Thailand, her sister kindly gave us this, which you might recognise as a Famicom. But the deal is, and we'll get some close-ups of that in just a few seconds, the deal is, this is a made in Taiwan, an original made in Taiwan Famicom. I know very little about these things, Neil.
Mm-hmm. This is like Antiques Roadshow, isn't it? What's
Yeah,
tell me about this.
Yeah. And how much is it worth? About 10 quid, I expect.
Well, the machine itself, family TV game, it says on the front, Nintendo Famicom, came out in Japan in 1983.
Okay.
Had quite a lifespan, actually. It didn't come out in Europe. Oh, I think it was 85 in the US, maybe the following year in Europe. Brazil officially 93, and it wasn't discontinued in Japan until 2003. So it had a 30-year lifespan, which is incredible, really, considering the age of the technology. This old 8-bit console, 2003, what do we have? We'd gone past the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's still up there.
Yeah, it's
That's
still
amazing,
for sale in
Yeah.
Japan. Held up, you know, I don't think any official games were still being made by that point. And I know you've got some games here. I can't tell you which ones are genuine and which aren't, but I imagine this was still going that late in 2003 because of the black market of games, you know.
Yeah.
The demand was still there because of those games. But yeah, it's a really, well, historically it's an important system. Some say that it saved, in the US you had the video games crash in the early 80s. Some say, and I don't 100% agree with this, but some say this is the machine that saved the video games industry.
Okay.
That's a very American point of view, because in the UK we had the Spectrums and the Amstrads and the microcomputers, and we didn't really feel the ripples too much of the great video game crash. So there's a debate to be had there, but it certainly deserves its place in history. Personally, I used to play this at Chi Wang Quan's house. This was the family that ran the local Chinese takeaway.
No!
And I used to go, they were in my class at school, Chi Wan and Chi Ho, and they had this. They had the controllers, which are wired, you can't take them out, although there is a port on the front where you can add additional controllers. But what they had, which I thought was amazing, was the disk system. So it was a disk drive that sat underneath, and all of their games were on floppy disks.
Amazing.
Copied and pirated, so they just
So
put
you
floppy disks
didn't
in.
need these cartridges.
No, and every time they went home to China, they'd go and pick up a load of more games on floppy disks.
On floppy disk, as you do.
It was amazing.
Superb. So, obviously this is in need of a bit of work, and I suppose that's sort of part of my deal, really. This was, as I said, given to me by Vicky's sister, and as you can see, you know, a lot of the cables and wires are a little bit frayed and that kind of stuff. So the plan is to clean this up, refurbish it, and perhaps even give it back to Vicky's family, just so that they can enjoy some nostalgia later down the road. Now, what are the games like?
Well, you've got Donkey Kong here, so that's obviously a Nintendo classic.
Proper,
Again,
yeah.
Can't tell you if this is original or not. Some of them look a bit, you know, you've got different shapes, and I'm sure that the official ones would have all conformed to a, you know,
specific
a regulated shape. And
yeah.
so you've got Dragon Ball Z or Z here from 1992.
Is that the American version, Dragon Ball Z?
I guess so. I don't know what this is. Yeah, it's just a picture on there. No words. You might want to hold that one up to the camera.
Okay, yeah, we'll get some footage of that
it
in a
might
few
be
seconds.
a game called River City Rampage. I'm not sure. It's just similar art style. That's the only reason I say that. But I'm sure that is a very common art style. You've got a 4-in-1, so this is definitely a classic one that you'd buy down on a market stall.
Cool.
4 games crammed into one cartridge.
Okay. Yep. I don't recognise any of those games either. But again, it's all in, you know,
Completely
obviously in Chinese and quite probably counterfeit, as you
That's
say.
your Donkey Kong again. So yeah, classic system that deserves your attention, Howard, for sure.
Superb. Okay, well, we'll get on and we'll see if we can fix that one up. And thank you ever so much for popping over and giving us a quick guided tour of this system. And thanks for visiting the van. Cheers.
Hello, cave dwellers.
satisfaction. Touch me, and then just push me.